that's been really exciting. But moving right along into our top Zen, sometimes it's hard to separate art from artist, right? As humans, we can't help our tiny brains just refuse to see some actors as anything other than the amazing characters we know and love them. So this week we wanted to give you guys our top 10 artists that embody-odie-yodi-yodi-yodi-yodi-yodi the characters. So much so that it's hard to see them as anyone else in those roles. And Bronwyn will be kicking us off with number 10 in the countdown. Bronwyn, who's number 10 in our countdown?
Number 10 in our countdown is Ian McKellen as Gandalf. Ian did an amazing job with this role. The role of Gandalf could have quickly gone sour if not for Ian's ability to play the concerned parent, sage counselor, and strict teacher all at once. He did a perfect job balancing the harsh realities Gandalf faced with the humor inside every situation. "You shall not pass" will forever be ingrained in my nerd head, and I honestly couldn't see anyone else shouting it. But while Ian McKellen was Gandalf the Great, number 9 on this week's countdown has his claws out. Who do we have at number 9, Dodd?
Yes, but before we go into number 9, I want to talk a little bit about Ian McKinnon as Gandalf, because I mean he's been an absolutely iconic character in the Lord of the Rings series. And like this is how I was introduced as Ian McKellen. He really did embody this role, and ever since then he has been the wise gay wizard of the land. And I don't know if Gandalf was gay. Headcanon for me he is, but that's just maybe wishful thinking. But as far as in the real world, he still has had that kind of very not only what's the word I'm looking for, like fatherly, but like teaching kind of wisdom giver kind of aspects to him, but he's also had that kind of whimsical fun loving aspect too that Gandalf is known for as well. And so I think that this was a person that really, like, I can't possibly think of another person playing Gandalf if they ever redid these series at all. Mentor, maybe that was the word I was looking for. Mentoring, kind of. Yeah, I think that's probably the right word. Kev, what do you think about Ian McKellen as Gandalf?
He is Gandalf.
Yeah.
He's somehow Gandalf and old Magneto for me. Like that's just that's just what he is. That's just who I see. Like I don't see anything else. I mean, and it's probably because he's been the only one to play him, and probably also for good reason. Yeah.
Right. Well, that's what this countdown is all about. But number 9 on the countdown is probably one that's been even harder for people to see, even though people have tried to definitely recast this character a number of times, because he has finally stepped away from the role. But that is number 9 is Hugh Jackman as Wolverine. X-Men should have never been remade because no one will ever be able to fill Hugh Jackman's shoes. He brought Wolverine to life in such a unique and heartfelt way. Having played the role of Logan in over a bazillion X-Men films, it's easy to see why he'd make the list. It's hard for me to think of anyone else to play Wolverine, that's for sure. Fans loved watching him in the movies, and Jackman's performance will be hard to top if the studio ever does decide to reboot the Wolverine franchise. But this list is filled with a bunch of different heroes. So, he's only coming in at number 9 on the countdown. But Bron, what do you think about Hugh Jackman making number 9 as Wolverine?
Oh, yeah, he's definitely my Wolverine. I love him in this role, but I also love that actor so much because even though I can't think of anybody else embodying Wolverine, I can see him embodying so many other roles. He has such a cool range as an actor. I could see him playing anything, but I can't see anyone else playing Wolverine.
I could think of, I've stretched to think of a possibly do it, but there had to be a lot of photoshopped convincing to get me to go that way. What do you think, Kev, about Hugh Jackman as Wolverine number 9 in the countdown?
Yeah, I think, wasn't there like kind of a controversy where they said they had found a replacement for Hugh, or not a replacement, but a recast for Wolverine, and then fans kind of there was so much outcry that I guess they didn't do it, and somehow Hugh Jackman is still Wolverine somewhere in the world?
Maybe. I mean, that wouldn't surprise me for sure.
Yeah, yeah,
But I mean, hey, that's why he's number 9 on the countdown.
yeah.
Well, number 8 might have been a better fit for the role than anybody else. I mean, number 8 in the countdown actually I do think embodies the character more. And we got to talk a little bit about him earlier in the show, which is Chadwick Bosman as T'Challa. Kev, tell us why the Black Panther makes it at number 8 in the countdown.
Yeah, Chadwick Boseman as T'Challa, also known as Black Panther, was a perfect fit. His mannerisms, understanding of the impact this has to the culture and the magnitude that his role holds is something that Chadwick Boseman was no stranger to. Aside from playing a myriad of other prominent Black figures, Chadwick Boseman embodied T'Challa in many ways by fully immersing himself in the world, really kind of just changing. There was like a certain vibe and energy in 2018 when this movie came out, and he was kind of like right in the center of it. And it just seems like everything was kind of just gravitating towards this movie. And a lot of that was because of sort of the energy and the passion and him embodying this character. And it was just like, I still go back to that. Like, it was a weird moment, a weird time, because I remember the fattest sex, like how important this movie was, that he'd seen it 3 times. He took his parents to see it, right? Like, this movie, like, there's not enough Black superheroes out there, not enough like great Black superhero content, and this was the one that was created by Black people, produced by Black people, and then executed by Black people. And it wasn't accidentally Black either.
It wasn't like,
no,
it's
a
Black character doing things.
No,
it was like,
all...
it's like, this is Black, like as
right.
From Africa, like rooted in the culture kind of thing.
Right. It was intentional, and I think that was why it was so great. It was a Black movie, and and it was a great Black movie, and Wakanda forever.
Yeah, it's gonna be hard to think of anyone filling these shoes. Obviously, we talked about the reasons why that would be, something vital and important. But it's gonna be hard to see. But I know, Bronwyn, you and I both would be, I think all of us here would be excited to see Shuri take the role of Black Panther, and carry that mantle.
I agree.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
Well, number 8 on the countdown is a huge, definitely embodied that character fully. There's one that stumbled into this countdown very drunkenly, and made it in at number 7. It definitely has been playing a bunch of Sea of Thieves with me lately, that's for sure. Brahman, tell us who we got at number 7 in the countdown.
Number 7, we have Johnny Depp as Captain Jack Sparrow. Nobody else could have played the role the way he did. From his mannerisms to the way he talked, he was the perfect Jack Sparrow. When people cosplay Jack Sparrow, they're just a pirate Johnny Depp. While Depp is a phenomenal actor who's really embodied many roles, his take on Jack Sparrow will never be outdone. It's one of those characters that no one else will ever be able to do justice the way Depp did. There's no Pirate of the Caribbean without Jack Sparrow, and there's no one else who would play Sparrow like Depp. Well, Disney struck gold with Depp. DC might have outdone them with number 6. Who do we have emancipating themselves at number 6, Dodd?
Emancipating themselves at number 6, Margot Robbie as Harley Quinn. That's right, Margot Robbie as Harley Quinn, the deprived sidekick of the Joker, makes her big screen debut in the much anticipated film Suicide Squad, which came out in 2018, 2017, something like that. I think it's 2017. Highly anticipated, big flop, with a lot of I was so excited for that movie, and then they cringe at that one line where Katana walks in and Harley Quinn goes, "Is that the stench of death?" And I'm like,
yeah.
Yeah. But Robbie did steal the screen after the scene in Wolf and Wall Street with her heavy Bronx accent, stunning features, was a perfect fit for the role, even getting her own standalone film. I mean, The Birds of Prey is her own standalone film. Let's be honest. The Birds of Prey and the Fabulous Emancipation of One Harley Quinn. The accent, the looks, the hammer. Margot Robbie has completely stole the show in every movie that she's been in as Quinn, and can't wait to see her in the new Suicide Squad film. I'm hoping that James Gunn has a better take on Harley Quinn than some of the previous movies. Braun, what do you think about Margot Robbie making it as Harley Quinn as number 6 on the countdown?
Yeah, I think she's a great Harley Quinn. I don't know if she's the only person who could play Harley Quinn, but I do like what she does with the character.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But I could see it going different routes. I could see.
That's true.
I love Margot Robbie. I thought that she was incredible in the movie Tanya. Like, oh my god, or I, Tanya. Did you guys ever see that?
Yeah, no, that was fantastic.
Yeah.
That's definitely a good psycho to play.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah, I like the Tanya Harding psycho a little bit more than her Harley Quinn.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Well, it might be
She's
hard to
great,
pick.
Harley.
Well, it might be hard to picture anybody else as Harley, though. Number 5 would have taken a little of magic not to make the list. Kev, who's under the invisibility cloak at number 5?
Yeah, it's Daniel Radcliffe as Harry Potter. Surprise there. Daniel Radcliffe became an international superstar when still a child after being cast as the lead in the Harry Potter series. It was a highly sought after role, but Radcliffe thinks he knows why he got it. He doesn't think he was inherently the best actor auditioning for the role. In fact, quite the opposite. He admits that he wasn't the best actor at that age, but he believes that he had a spirit that impressed those making the decision to cast him. Sometimes there's simply no replacement for pure enthusiasm, which seems to be what Daniel Radcliffe thinks he had over the role of Harry Potter. Certainly, passion is important as it drives you to want to do a job well. However, it's also important to have passion when playing Harry Potter because it's something that the character himself very much has. The casting of the main 3 characters in the Harry Potter series was unique simply because they were casting actors who would play the same role for over a decade. It wasn't just about figuring out who would do the part justice in Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone, but also trying to figure out what these actors would be like in years in the future and making sure they would still fit the parts then. Looking back, it's easy to say they all nailed it, but specifically Radcliffe. I mean, he is Harry Potter. No one else could play the role, in my opinion. While number 5 is magical, number 4 is a merc with a mouth full. Bron, who you got at number 4?
At number 4, I have Ryan Reynolds as Deadpool. It's easy to see why Reynolds as Deadpool is one of the best casting decisions in the history of comic book movies. Reynolds seems to be having as much fun as anyone bringing the merc with the mouth to the screen. And his lightning-fast dialogue and ear for their sarcastic and strain seems to be perfectly in tune with the ever-popular anti-hero of Marvel's comics. Deadpool, who is always a little too weird for mainstream fanfare, but maintains a rabid cult fan base, made its solo film debut in February of 2003. Now it's almost impossible to see anyone else playing the iconic anti-hero, as long as we all just forget about that one X-Men movie. While Reynolds as Deadpool might be one of the best comic castings ever, number 3 is definitely one of the GOAT casting calls. And before we move on to number 3, I want to mention that I think he does have a lot of fun in this role, and you kind of see that in the way that he even it promoted the film or interacted with the public, and he just totally was Deadpool, and I love that meta aspect of it, and you could just tell the Deadpool was a little bit of him, and he was a little bit of Deadpool, and that kind of.
And I think he really wanted to be too. That was the thing, because he did play Deadpool before, and it was terrible. But he acknowledged that, and I think that's why. Not only was this
and it was
something
written,
for him to do, but he wanted to redeem it.
It was clearly a writing decision, right? I mean, his mouth was sewn shut in the plot line. That's what made it suck.
Yeah, and that was really stupid. Thinking about, there's a lot of dumb things that was someone trying to be overly creative,
right?
Cutting their face despite their nose, right? or cutting their nose despite their face, however the expression goes.
Cutting their nose despite their face,
Yeah,
yeah. And
yeah,
then cutting
yeah.
off
Like,
their ears, and then cutting
and
off
then
the parts of their cheeks,
and
and
then
then just
sewing their mouth shut. Yeah.
yeah, and then just looking like a whole meat face, just
Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
That was
Or
dumb.
like Deadpool.
Or like Deadpool. They were like,
Yeah.
how can we make like what's your creative twist on Deadpool to make him nothing like Deadpool? Like what?
Yeah, I mean, Ryan Reynolds was the perfect person for it. I can't think of anybody else that could play this person. And you talk about him acting like Deadpool. I mean, like there's all the time where he's very much tried to dance around the question of whether or not he was the person that actually leaked the original footage that got Deadpool going.
Yeah. Yeah.
He's danced around that for a while, and then like he hides like in his Mint Mobile commercials. You'll see like when he's on his desktop, it'll say like leaked Deadpool footage. Like Ryan Reynolds has his own like Easter eggs that he puts in his own content kind of stuff, and I think that's amazing that he's done that, and that's something that does not involve Deadpool at all. But just it's hard. It would be absolutely impossible to see anybody else in the role of Deadpool. That's for sure.
No, when someone like an actor's that passionate about a role or a character, like it's hard, right? Like some actors go into it and it's either like they just do it, and some are even reluctant. Some don't even want to be associates. They try to distance themselves. But when an actor just fully embodies it, like this is what it means to embody it. Like you said, he like on and off the screen, he's always Deadpooled somewhere, even just a little bit.
Yeah. Absolutely. But it's different than well, I mean, it's not as impressive as number 3 on the countdown, and you got to pour one out for number 3, unfortunately, which is Carrie Fisher as Princess Leia. Anybody that knows about Carrie Fisher knows that Princess Leia, it feels like Princess Leia was more modeled after Carrie Fisher, and honestly, I hate the Princess Leia that's in any of the video games or the TV shows, because they always make Princess Leia this hope, nice, all these things, but Princess Leia was this kind of like back talking, like no, man, I don't like you, or like smacks the guy in the face kind of thing, like she was Carrie Fisher. And Carrie as Leia was the only person who could have inspired an entire generation of girls to be strong, independent women. Fisher's Princess Leia is a strong, heroic, brave throughout the entire first film, showing a level of complete skill and charisma unmatched by many Star Wars actors since. In The Empire Strikes Back, Fisher continues to portray Princess Leia as an important and essential figure in the Star Wars universe. She's integral to the story and a huge part of what makes the film so spectacular. Leia's importance to almost every Star Wars movies is unmatched, and Fisher embodies this character so much that it's easy to see why she made number 3 on the countdown. Honestly, the Carrie Fisher's Princess Leia shows a great evolution in character, and just a very. I mean, she fully embodied this character. I mean, she was the we can do it, kind of poster girl for being a strong female lead, and that's why when I see anybody else playing the character in any capacity, it just does not work at all. Yeah. I don't think you could do a movie about young Leia, because I wouldn't like it, because you don't have Carrie Fisher, young Carrie Fisher. Like you would need Carrie Fisher for that. What do y'all think about Carrie?
Really great actress. I feel like that could be cool.
Okay, all right. That's that. You got me with your first counterpoint, Bronwyn.
No said. Close enough. Yeah.
Got me with the first one.
Yeah. I got nothing for that. Yeah.
Yeah, that's solid. That's a solid pick. While Carrie Fisher is amazing, I think the shoo-in, she could be a shoo-in for number 1, but why so serious about number 2, Kevin?
Yeah, it's Heath Ledger as the Joker. I remember people were so confused, myself included, by the casting decision at first. Heath was known to be a good actor, but before this movie, it was hard to imagine him in any kind of role like that, right? Like he was, they're all just kind of like basic acting roles for the most part. Like nothing really too dangerous or exotic, so to speak. Then when we all saw what he brought to the role, it all made sense. He played him to perfection. Heath did such an outstanding job that everyone that portrayed the Joker before and after him doesn't even compare. It's a legendary performance. Heath did such a good job. Leto was doomed from the start. We talked about this earlier.
Sure.
Sorry, Joaquin, but Heath will always be my favorite Joker. Bron, how do you feel about this?
I mean, I think that this was when you talk about embodying the character, this is a darker one, but I do think that he deserves the recognition that he did. Heath Ledger, what he did to take on the Joker role will always go down in cinematic legend history and method acting legend history. He locked himself, for those of you who don't know, he locked himself into a hotel room. He studied pictures of clowns, all these kind of different shows and stuff like that. Himself into a serial killer through isolation. And he fell into a hard drug addiction right after because he went deep into this role. And basically that's what ended up taking his life, was an overdose.
He embodied it so much he died with it. Like,
he embodied it so much that the Joker took him out. So I think that is one that it's a sad and it's a dark one, but I definitely agree with its placing as number 2. Bronwyn, what do you think? Do you think it's a valid pick for number 2?
Yeah, definitely. It is a sad pick. That was a very strong statement there. I don't know if we can necessarily say that like everything about the role took his life, because I don't know what else was going on in his life. But I can see the impact. I can see that, and I think that method acting is such like a interesting psychological study, like to an extent, and that literally is what you're doing when you're doing that acting technique, is you are embodying that character. So I do agree. He is top on that list for sure.
Yeah.
100%.
And while Heath Ledger as Joker could easily be number 1, it's easy to see who's the real GOAT casting decision. I mean, he's the first Avenger, for Pete's sake. Bron, who's the number 1 on this week's countdown?
Robert Downey Jr. as Iron Man, Tony Stark. The similarities between Robert Downey Jr. and his most famous on-screen performance run deeper than the ability to deliver a snarky one-liner or rock an iconic goatee. In many ways, Downey Jr. is eerily reminiscent of the Tony Stark that many of us grew up with reading comics. A former addict who rose from near I can't read that word, sorry. A former addict who rose to a high status to become one of the world's biggest stars. It was Downey Jr.'s performance in Iron Man that kicked off the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and he remains the most recognizable member of the Avengers squad that is now found on merchandise from North America to Asia to Africa and everywhere in between. Effortlessly charming, enticingly edgy, and 100% here remains the best casting decision in the history of comic book films. What are your thoughts?
I mean, this is an obvious one to me. I mean, I think that watching Robert Downey Jr. go from struggling with alcoholism to, where he is now shows you. Definitely someone with a troubled past, for sure. And I think that he's risen to the stardom and has really embodied the honestly, capitalist icon superhero that he is. That's what Iron Man is. He really has played it, and because of it, he's added in several lines, even some of the most famous lines, like "I am Iron Man" right before he snaps his finger at the end of Endgame. That was all improvised, and that's because he, really did embody that character to be able to come up with those lines, to be able to improvise those spots, to be able to fill in those blanks. So I think that he is a 100% the solid pick for number 1.
Right, and he does such a great job of it too. I think balancing it, right? Like he embodies it so much, but I don't think he I wouldn't say he lets it consume him. It doesn't seem like he does other things, right? He does other roles, but he's no stranger to knowing that this is a part of who he is and his legacy, a huge part of his legacy, I guess, as an actor. And I think you see that so many times where it's hard, where someone either they fully embody it and they get lost in the character, or they fully embody it and they resent it because fans won't let them go to anything else. I think Robert Downey Jr. has kind of balanced that, and I think that's what makes it so likable.
Yeah, absolutely, 100%. But that will about do it for our countdown. A couple of honorable mentions. Tom Hiddleston is Loki. Chris Evans is Cap. Basically, most of the Marvel casting calls. John Krasinski is Jim Halpert. Tommy Oliver as the White/Green Ranger. Some dishonorable mentions. Kevin Spacey as Francis Underwood. Ugh, that turned out to be one that really lived up to his standards. And David Bowie as Jared the Goblin King. Yeah, that one's really... I think that's a dishonorable mention. Still, I mean, you're talking about a character.
Context. Okay.
Yeah, the context.
I get it now.
Right, like we're saying he's dishonorable. Like we're saying, especially the fact that like he's like the protector of children and stuff like that. And David Bowie was known to like sleep with kids, stuff like that. Yeah, I think that's a dishonorable mention.
Yeah.
Okay, I agree. I keep forgetting how terrible he is because I'm like, my context of that film was watching it when I didn't know.
Yeah. Well, that'll wrap it up for this episode of Geek Life. You know, just leave you with that taste of disappointment in your mouth. We hope you've enjoyed everything you've seen today. Remember that if you want more Geek Life, you can always follow any of us on Twitch, Twitter. You can find me at Rusebane, WRUSE_BANE. Brahman, where can they find you?
You can find me at Space Nymph on Instagram and here on Twitch.
And Kev, where can they find you?
You can find me at Totally Awesome.
And if you want to join the nerd herd and get engaged in the conversations that we are having all the time, and check out a whole bunch of our dank memes and play Sea of Thieves with us, definitely check out the Discord below. You can find a link below that should say join the nerd herd. There should be a big glowing green what's the thing? A caravan looking thing? Yeah, there's a logo for it. We designed a logo.
It's
a fun logo. It's a wagon. Right. I want to say thank you, Jay Hazard, for that subscription coming in there. We would really appreciate that. Thank you so much for that. Also, shout out to Fattest Sack, Savage Patch Kid, Littlest Nelly, Extreme Greatness, SAG, everybody. Yeah, everybody was hanging out with us. We had a lot of fun today. Thank you guys for contributing to the conversation. Again, if you guys like anything else that you see or hear, be sure to follow us on YouTube. Follow us on Twitch, Twitter, Instagram. All the links you can find on our link tree somewhere in the bio below. Big shout out to our moderator, Littlest Nelly, and our video producer, Cape. Big shout out to Cape. We finally got everything back up and running. That was definitely something that we needed to have happen. And all of our new followers. And I guess you can find Kevin killed by extreme greatness. That's all I've got for you guys. We'll be back same time, same place next week. You'll also hopefully be able to catch me this Friday for a Free Game Friday. Fingers crossed the internet gets fixed then and we'll be able to do all that stuff. But that'll wrap it up for this episode. Thanks again for tuning in, guys. We'll see you same time, same place this next week. Yeah,